Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some news out of the state of Michigan. The first Democratic candidate to join the Michigan Senate primary after incumbent Democratic Senator Gary Peters announced he would not be running. Mallory McMorrow, a state senator from the state of Michigan, has entered the race with a call for change in the Democratic Party. Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow is jumping into the race to replace our retiring Senator Gary Peters, planting her flag in what's expected to be one of the most highest profile Senate races of the 2026 midterms. McMorrow, a Democrat, made the announcement last Wednesday morning in a direct-to-camera video that evokes the breakneck pace of news out of the Trump administration, telling supporters that there are moments that will break you, this is not that moment. They want you to make you feel powerless, but you are not powerless, she says in the video, evoking her 2018 state Senate victory over Republican incumbent, her viral speech forcefully pushing back against her Republican colleagues' attacks and recent Democratic electoral and legislative successes in the state. Her announcement video also features a heavy dose of not just President Trump, but also Elon Musk. There's a lot of fear and anger and uncertainty right now about people in power who frankly have no business being there. So you know what won't fix it? The same old crap out of Washington, she adds. A handful of state senators have made the jump straight to the U.S. Senate in recent years, including Joni Ernst, Republican of Iowa, and an Illinois Democrat by the name of Barack Obama. But McMorrow, who gained a measure of national prominence thanks to that viral speech in 2022, is stepping into what is likely to be the toughest election of her life. It's unclear who will join her. McMorrow is the first major candidate to officially jump in the race to succeed Peters, but a host of other Democrats are reportedly considering running, including Representatives Kristen McDonald-Rivette and Haley Stevens, while Attorney General Dana Nessel said this year she hadn't ruled out a Senate bid. On the Republican side, former Representative Mike Rogers, the 2024 Senate nominee, who narrowly lost last year, has been floating a bid along with a handful of other prominent Republicans in the state. Faced with the prospect of running statewide against candidates with more federal electoral experience, McMorrow doubled down on her call for a new generation in Washington in an interview ahead of her launch. She pointed to her experience in Lansing and her work helping to elect Democrats across the state and argued that as a millennial, she is running a campaign to push the message of the new American dream, as a direct counter to Make America Great Again, the idea that you should be able to afford the life you wanted if you've done everything right. One of the things that I'm really excited about in this campaign is to show a very different example. Because I'm not from Washington, McMorrow said, pointing to the strong track record she and Democrats in the legislature have had in recent years on issues like reproductive health and abortion rights protections. Yes, we need not only a new generation of leadership, but a new generation of Democrats who, when they get power, are actually going to do the things they said they're going to do, she said. McMorrow hasn't thought just about how she'll position herself in a competitive race. She has thought hard about the challenges the Democratic Party faces after its presidential election loss. She said voters repeatedly made it clear they didn't know what the Democrats stood for and why they would affirmatively vote for Democrats when she campaigned for the Vice President Kamala Harris last year, adding that voters really understood only that the party was anti-Trump. Throughout the interview, she repeatedly called for the Democratic Party's elder leaders to step aside and let a new generation step up, saying her party has been worse off because of its inability to pass the torch. We are not bringing in new ideas and a new approach and a new mix of people in a way, and that has really hurt us. The sentiment led to her announcement before she launched her campaign that she would not vote for Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer of New York to continue being the party's Senate leader in 2027 if she's elected. She also acknowledged she sent then President Joe Biden a private letter asking him to step aside as a presidential candidate last year, according to an article by Politico. In a recent NBC News interview, McMorrow stressed that her position on Schumer is not a personal knock at all, and that it isn't specifically over a disagreement with the decision to support the GOP spending measure to avoid a government shutdown. Instead, she disagreed with what she had characterized as Schumer's slow and steady strategy, that by 2026 the Republicans in the House and Senate will feel like they're rats on a sinking ship because we have gone after Trump. McMorrow criticized the idea that we're just going to wait and get them in the midterms instead of recognizing that Trump has completely remade this party and the priority of the MAGA party is to burn the government and institutions down to dismantle it piece by piece, she said. And that is not the same reality that I think President Biden and Senator Schumer have spent most of their life operating in. So, I don't even think it's necessarily anybody's fault. But McMorrow is careful to not hold Democrats across different levels of government to the same standard. Asked about Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer's approach to Trump, Whitmer is one of the few Democratic governors who has met with Trump even as she vocally disagrees with his terrorist plan. McMorrow said she's under different pressure from other Democrats. We've seen Trump withhold funding and threaten other governors who dare to speak out against him just for personal vengeance. I don't want to speak for the governor, but what it feels like she is doing is making sure that she does not, through her own personality and personal feelings, say or do anything that's going to cause him to seek vengeance on her by hurting the residents of the state of Michigan. McMorrow announced her campaign about a week after she released her new book, one that's part of a politician's memoir and part guide for the Democrats looking to become more politically engaged. In it, she repeatedly invokes her 2022 speech, in which she pushed back against Republicans' attacks, declaring that she is a straight white Christian married suburban mom who wants every kid to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment or that healthcare costs are too high or teachers are leaving the profession. 3 years later, there are deep divisions among Democrats about transgender issues, particularly when it comes to participation in sports, after Republicans launched a bevy of ads attacking Democrats over their support for transgender people. Prominent Democrats like Gavin Newsom have sided against allowing transgender girls to participate in women's sports and polling in recent years. McMorrow said that sports should be a safe and fair, and the right governing body to make those decisions is the governing body of the sport itself. This is not a role where politicians should be involved, warning that GOP attempts to police transgender participation in women's sports could mean girls who do not look or sound feminine enough based on someone's subjective opinion could be subject to genital exams to play sports. There's a massive difference between running cross country and, let's say, Division 1, rugby, chess, esports, because that's another conversation that come up. I don't mean to be deflective, but when I say sports governing body is the place that recognizes that, depending on when an individual may have transitioned. Maybe there's a biological advantage, maybe there isn't. Is that fair? That's not for a place for me or decide or politicians in Washington. More broadly, McMorrow argued that the debate illustrates her party's messaging issues. She wrote in the book that progressive activists' well-intentioned ideas of using inclusive language, like birthing persons, can be counterproductive to the ultimate goal to enact policy to support the LGBTQ community. She said in the interview, we have to talk to 99% of people, which means language that they understand, using examples they understand. Because you need a majority of people on your side to have the votes to move the policy that you want to move that gets the end goal. I want to have the fight on my terms, and I refuse to let Republicans paint me into the corner on the light they want me to have, she added. So that was a lot, but at the end result of it, Mallory McMorrow was the first Democratic candidate to enter the Senate race in 2026. She's a state senator from the 8th District in Michigan, which you can see right here on this map, and she is the first Democrat officially in. There are a lot of publicly expressed Democrats as well, like Sarah Anthony, Abdul El Sayed, Dana Nessel. We have Kristen McDonald-Rivette, Haley Stevens are all publicly expressed interest. Other potential candidates, Andy Levin, Matt Sard, and Rashida Tlaib, could all potentially run for this race, but there's no reporting saying they are going to at this time. So that's where things are on the Democratic side of things. On the Republican side of things, right now, we're waiting on an announcement from Mike Rogers, the Republican nominee for Senate in 2024. He's currently the leader to run for this race in 2026 for the Senate. Other people probably expressed interest. Tudor Dixon, who's the nominee for governor in 2022 for the Republicans, she's expressed interest in maybe running for this race, as well as Bill Huizenga and Kevin Rinke, a U.S. representative from Michigan's 4th District and former car dealer and candidate for governor in 2022. The Republicans have a lot of potential candidates who, like the Democratic ones, have not specifically said they're interested in running for governor or not, but they haven't ruled it out either. Like Brian Calley, Mike Cox, John James, Jonathan Lindsley, Ronna McDaniel, Peter Maher, John Molinar, Eric Nisbet, Sandy Pensler, Brian Posthumus, Bill Schwett, Nikki Snyder, and John Tuttle. A lot of potential Republican candidates, but right now, I would say Mike Rogers and Tudor Dixon are the two leaders on the Republican side. The race right now, according to Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Stabler's Crystal Ball, they all have it are listed and rated as a toss-up. Early hypothetical polling shows Nessel leading Rogers by 2, Nessel and Tudor Dixon being tied. Pete Buttigieg, when he was rumored to be running, was up over Rogers in one poll and down in another. Posthumus was trailing to Gretchen Whitmer, though Whitmer's already ruled out that she will not be running. And Haley Stevens versus Mike Rogers had Rogers leading in one poll. This race is going to really come down to the wire. And a big reason is we just saw the Michigan Senate race in 2024 be super close. Democrat Elisa Slotkin defeated Mike Rogers by just 0.34%. a tilt Democratic win, under 1% of the vote for Slotkin. The only caveat here is this is on the same ballot when Donald Trump won the state of Michigan by 1.4% over Kamala Harris. And Republicans in Michigan have done very well in the last few elections when Donald Trump was at the top of the ticket. In 2020, Michigan was still very close. Joe Biden won it by 2.8%. In 2016, Donald Trump won the state by 0.22%. But when you look at off-year elections, it gets a little bit more dicey. As I mentioned, 2024 was super close. There was no Senate race in 2022. 2020, 1.7% race for Peters versus John James, very, very close as well, with Trump at the top of the ticket. In 2018, when Trump was not on the ballot, Stabenow defeated John James by 6.5 points, a likely Democratic win. Looking at the governor's side of things, the governor's map will give us a little bit more of a clearer indication. In 2022, which was a good Republican night, supposed to be a very good Republican night, kind of ended up being a split where Republicans did well in some areas, Democrats did well in some areas. Gretchen Whitmer won re-election over Tudor Dixon by 10.5%. A likely Democratic win for the very competitive swing state of Michigan, very big win for the Democrats in 2022. This could play into the problem of Republicans not turning out to vote when Donald Trump's name is not on the ballot, which could be a concern for 2026 if Republicans don't fix that problem. That was 2022. You can look at 2018 when Whitmer ran against the Republican Schwett, who I just mentioned as a potential candidate. She won by 9.6%. So the Republicans are in a tough spot for 2026 because they only seem to do well when Donald Trump is at the top of their ticket. In 2026, Trump won't be at the top of the ticket. But at the same time, Republicans also came within less than half a percentage point of winning the Senate race in Michigan in 2024. Maybe if the economy and tariffs and such improve and the United States in a better direction in a few months and even in a year than it is now, maybe Republicans could galvanize a lot of the Trump voters to get out and vote again and maybe be able to eke out a narrow victory in Michigan. Right now, Michigan, you could go either way with the ratings of it. You could say it's a Democrat or Republican win, and I really would not fight you too hard on it. That's how close it's going to be. It's certainly one of those states I have in the battleground category right now. If I was going to make a prediction for 2026, I would start Michigan off as lean Democrat, which means I have it going Democrat by more than 1 point in the margin of victory, but less than 5 points in the margin of victory. I think it's going to be very, very close. I think the condition of the country and how Donald Trump is viewed come 2026 is going to be a big factor in how this race ends up going. But I do think the Democrats do have a narrow advantage in the state of Michigan, in large part due to the fact when President Trump is not at the top of the ticket for the Republicans in Michigan, they don't seem to do as well as when they do when Donald Trump is at the top of the ticket. If the Republicans can fix that issue, maybe it'll be a different story. But the Wisconsin Supreme Court election just a few days ago showed that that's still a problem the Republican Party faces when Trump is not at the top of the ballot. But that's all I have for you in today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to give the video a like. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts if you did. Also, make sure to click subscribe as I post at least one new video every single day that you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.